Hello, Sara Haines.
Hello, Brian.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Happy to have you back on the podcast. Now, we've been talking a lot about what's been going on in politics on the show. And one of the things that's come up is, and he's been coming up a lot lately, is political strategist James Carville. He's saying that if you disagree with what's happening right now with the current administration, the best thing to do is to sit back and allow President Trump and the GOP do what they do, and the fallout will happen. Do you agree with that? I've gotten a lot of different responses from
Well,
those.
yeah, because I think different people interpret it. He said play possum, and that is a strategic act of pretending you're dead. And I mention that because right now everyone says, be loud, be the resistance. They don't say this, but all I can think of is, do we storm the Capitol? Do we hold up signs? All those things. Yeah. What James Carville is saying is when everyone reacts to every crazy and sensational thing that's said by President Trump and any of the Republicans, they become I think his words were, target of mockery. So it distracts from what's happening. We're already seeing moderate GOP push back because their town halls are not going well. The voters are getting it now, and they're starting to complain. When you give them a distraction or a common enemy, which is anyone that's a Democrat, you're not allowing them to, as Joy Behar said, be turtles and eat themselves. So I'm not wishing bad things on the country, but there's really no coordinated, organized effort to push back yet because there's 1,000 things you could be fighting for, which divides the number in the opposition. And it's a numbers game. So I agree with him in the sense that sit back, don't become a target of mockery, because it's happening right now. They're starting to turn on each other. And that's what you want to happen, because Democrats don't have the votes right now. They just don't have them. So we need our power back, and that will come when, even as Amy Klobuchar, Senator Amy said the other day, about 2 votes in Congress or in the House and 4 in the Senate. That's not a big number. Let them start to come across the aisle.
All right. And you think that'll happen?
I absolutely do. We're watching it happen.
Yeah.
It's already started.
There seems like there's a change in the last week or so in the tenor of how things are being received. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how long it takes. All right. On the same topic, we have a question here from Kate in Pennsylvania. She says, Sara, I absolutely adore you. As someone who is more middle of the road politically, I find myself sharing your views on so many topics and issues. When you come across people who would prefer that you were left or right instead of the middle, or if someone told you that you're in the wrong for being independent, then please allow me to ask a familiar question. What would you do?
I saw what you did there, Kate. Thank you for the question. You stand your ground. I'm very clear on my beliefs. I'm not wishy-washy or both sidesy. I consider myself pretty common sense. Right. I come from the middle of the country. My family's more conservative. I went to a very liberal college and have lived in New York City ever since. I have balance in my life. I have people on different sides, equally as opposed to each other, and I listen a lot. I am very clear on what I think right now. I'm always open for people to speak to me and attempt to convince me otherwise, because I keep an open mind. But I feel very proud of where I stand, because I think people feel more comfortable wearing a jersey, especially in this day and age. And the partisan politics is one of the most dangerous, self-destructive parts of our government. Independents are probably, I'm not condemning people that assign themselves to a party, but are probably the most honest, open-minded, common sense people there are. So there are more independents than almost the 2 parties combined. So you're not alone, Kate. Welcome.
Well, and also I think the implication there is that it's a strategy for you, and it's not. It's where you land authentically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
Because my beliefs are very extreme when I believe in something. Like my beliefs in a woman's right to choose is very far left. So it's not that my beliefs just always fall in the middle. It's that when you actually average me out, I have conservative beliefs and more liberal beliefs.
Well, one of the things about the show, I get this from people all the time, like, well, they have an agenda, they have this. I said, they don't. The show doesn't. Every one of the hosts reacts passionately to a fault about every topic we talk about.
Yeah.
And it's how they feel in their gut. It's how they feel when they wake up in the morning. And again, there's no strategy behind it. It's just them being them, reacting to what's going on in the world.
It's also an approach to life. It's more philosophical for me. I don't presume in life that I'm right all the time. I can feel right where I'm at today or know what I think, but I think my journey in life is to always evolve, learn, listen, make mistakes, fall, be wrong. So if you approach things like that, you don't have an agenda, you don't have a narrative, and you don't have kind of, you're not set in stone.
Yeah,
And
I would go so far as to say among of the 10 to 12 hosts that I've worked with on The View, oh my God, I think you're probably the most open to having your mind changed.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. That's not to say anything negative about the other hosts, but they're a little more dug in on their opinions. And I think that I've seen it happen. I've seen you do turnarounds on things. And that's good because I actually think that's where the audience is. So it's an interesting thing. All right. So yesterday we talked about Jane Fonda's recent speech where she talked about how to use the word woke and about how it's about being empathetic.
Yeah.
You said, don't just do the easy empathy, do the empathy that challenges you a little further. What did you mean by that?
Well, so I mentioned that a lot of the beliefs I have that lean left, whether it's LGBTQ+, whether it's oppressed groups, whether I have so much natural empathy for people who are up against struggle or have been oppressed, whatever the thing is. What I find is harder to do is when you see kind of someone ranting on the other side that thinks they know and they are in your face, that's harder to feel sorry for someone like that. And I think the risk is, and I've probably wandered into this, is a certain self-righteous indignation. Well, at least I'm on the right side of history, so how dare you? Mm-hmm. And I hate to bring in church, but there was a sermon lately that I can't stop thinking about, which talked about oftentimes if you're growing and it's not uncomfortable or hard, you're probably not actually doing the work. It's also a lesson in therapy a lot. But what I loved about Jane Fonda's speech was she said at one point, it includes people who disagree politically.
Sure.
And right now we live in a very red and blue world where purple is probably the more dominant part, but people put on their jerseys, put on their colors, put on their parties, and walk opposite directions. She's saying, let's extend that empathy that as actors in that room, so many of us know how to do to those we disagree with. And I thought that was the part that I didn't expect. Mm-hmm. And that's why it probably landed the hardest for me.
I thought it was really impactful. And I thought our conversation about it yesterday was great. Today we talked about weight and body image on the show. And it reminded me of the video you did on The Weekend View last week. And if you're not watching The Weekend View, please tune in this week. You did that social media trend, coffee with your younger self.
Yep.
Let's listen to what you said.
I met my younger self for coffee this morning. She zipped in 10 minutes early, flustered that she would be late. I was early too, but that was because the coffee was a break from the kids. Her clothes didn't fit her body or her style, but I could see how hard she had tried. I was wearing a jogger set and she told me I looked comfortable. I shared that it wasn't just the clothes, but the skin I sat in too. She talked a lot and seemed unsettled. She ordered a caramel latte with whipped cream and I had a black coffee. She admired that I had the self-control to order something healthier, and I reassured her that it would eventually be her choice too.
I wanted to credit Jenna Cecilia, who came up with the original poem that
wow.
was based on. And I hadn't credited her at first, but I wanted to because kind of having coffee with your younger self was a trend that started from her poem.
Oh, cool.
And The Weekend people brought us all these clips of people who had done it. And so they wanted to record us. And I said, I actually want to take myself there and have coffee. I want to write it before I record it.
You took it very seriously.
I took it very seriously.
You took the assignment seriously. Others were more, had fun with it in different ways. But I respected that you really
As a type A Virgo, I always take my assignments seriously. Mm-hmm. But I literally kicked them out of my room. I was like, Jacqueline, I love you, but can you give me a minute? Because I want to do this.
Right.
I did not expect when I went to read it that it would hit me that way. Because as you're writing, oftentimes you can feel things, but when you say them, you hear them. And when I did it, I didn't want to get emotional, but the journey was emotional. So I ended up doing it and then posting on my social the whole entire thing I had done. And it was, a lot of people replied saying, that's an exercise I've done and all this. I'd never thought to do it, but it's something you can go back to over and over again that really makes you kind of see where you've come, where you started, have more forgiveness and have more faith in yourself. It was really visceral for me.
Well, tell us about that younger self.
Oh gosh, that'll make me cry. And being that you had a record for a while of crying, I haven't cried in a while, so I'd really rather not. I think I look back on how much time I wasted. I envision meeting with my 20-something self. Mm-hmm. That's where that's when I started drinking coffee. So, but I remember how much time I worried about what I looked like externally, my body. I used food as kind of a good day was how I was eating. A bad day was a bad decision. If a day was already bad, I didn't mind piling on with food. It was like a cycle of reward and punishment. And I wasted so many hours of my life. It's one of the biggest regrets I have. I don't think I could do it any differently because it took all of that fumbling and cycling to get to where I am now. And amazingly, on the other side, the way I maintain my life now is really easy and the results are better because I learned to love me. And that's a discipline every day. That's not easy. And it's not to say I do every day, but I'm much more skilled at this age in my 40s than I was in my 20s.
Well, so it's interesting because how much of talking to your younger self is similar to how you talk to your daughter?
It's funny. It's kind of the same exercise.
I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah. But I think whereas it's harder to imagine your younger self because that's just not possible in the universe, you can talk to your daughter. And a lot of times, like in therapy, that what comes up is, how would you tell Sandra? And I'm like, oh, Sandra, I would say, and you have so much grace and empathy for someone you love. And rarely do we extend that to ourselves, most problematically in the present tense. So right now, I'm still that little girl that has the wounds and things that I've bumped into. It's very hard for me to go easy on myself, and I don't think I'm alone in that. But it's remembering that you don't have to go back to your 20-year-old self to have grace on your 47-year-old self. And remember, someday she's going to be the little girl again that you're looking back on.
I like my 48-year-old self so much better than my 20-year-old self. It's not even close. Yeah.
My mom once said, I asked her, I was like, what's your favorite age? And she goes, the age I'm at. And I was like, that's cheesy. Like, nobody thinks that. No, everybody should think that, because I realize now that you can love life looking back, see all the pain, all the successes, and you'd still never go back. I would never go back.
Yeah. You know, I have daughters, and I know that body image issues start so young with girls. Have you noticed anything like that with Sandra yet?
No, weirdly, I noticed, I don't think we're running into that because we talk about food way differently than my parents did. And it's all about fuel. And like the reason you pick what we call brain food first is because if you put sugar in there first, all your organs are grabbing sugar that doesn't help them and makes them weaker. So let's have that after. And, you know, we try to be more scientific in how we teach, but it was actually Alec that first mentioned his body. He started obsessively talking about a six-pack, and I kept saying, Max, did you do this? Because he's like, I didn't mention
My
it.
youngest daughter's mentioned the six-pack
Yeah,
too.
they talk about it. And so he came home and he's like, one day he's like, I'm not going to have a treat because I want a six-pack. And I was like, okay, I love that you're talking about health and body, but I think let's talk about why you're focused on that six-pack.
Right.
Like because he didn't even understand that having a strong core is good for your back and longevity. You know,
Right.
he's looking at literally a visual of a six-pack. And I was like, we got to unpack this a little.
I mean, come on, Alec. Do you
Yeah.
even lift, bro?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's bra.
I'm sorry. All right. Speaking of your kids, two of them, Alec and Sandra, the ones we were just talking about, came to work with you last week. That was very much fun for everybody here. How was it for you?
It was like phenomenal. Alec had said to me before he came, it's always his favorite day of the year to come to work because this birthday trip, it's only the second trip. So
Right.
in all the times he's come for this birthday trip. But the day before we came, he said, Mama, everybody knows me at work. Like, I'm famous at your work. And I
Sure.
was like, honey, what you're not understanding is that's not famous. That's family. And then I played videos back of me being pregnant with him, the baby shower, my mom and dad coming, Max walking on the day. And all of a sudden he's like, they know me. I said, honey, that's what you're describing is you
Right.
feel so loved. These people have known you since day one, and that's why they all love you. And it's the love they feel when they're here. Every single person, the stage manager, cameraman, the producers, Jacqueline, who probably did the absolute most, talk to them, they engage them, they want to help them, they show them their jobs. Alec, by noon, I said, what was your favorite part? And he's like, everything at your work.
Oh, that's great.
And we proceeded to go to a Broadway show and have a pasta as big as his body. Like, those are his favorite things. And he loves coming to this place.
Well, tell me about the Broadway show. What'd you do?
We saw Aunt Juliet.
Oh, okay.
So he
Good
went
one.
last year too. But Sandra, I had taken her to one of my favorites, which is Wicked. And she loved it. But she is the music in Aunt Juliet is like our generation.
Sure.
But they make sense of the songs move you through the play. But they loved it and they were so tired. But you couldn't calm down in that show.
No.
So we came home and all we listened to is the soundtrack.
It's one of my daughter's favorites too, and they play it constantly.
All the time.
Yeah.
With the added changes in the lyrics and stuff. But honestly, I don't think anything can hold a flame to Coming Here.
Yeah, no, that's great. And they got to say the tagline and promote
they
the podcast.
had that planned. Alex like, so I'm going to have lines and then you're going to say, and at one point Alex like, I'll tell everyone to enjoy the view. And I was like, sweetie, with all due respect, Miss Whoopi, who you know, that's her line. And then we come in and it's Joy. My favorite line, though, he said, does Paul, our stage manager, who he knows,
Right.
does Paul decide that? I was like, no, Mr. Bryan. You know Mr. Bryan. He goes, I'm going to say this once. I need to talk to your boss.
That's right. I had a talking to, and he got to do it, so it worked
He
out.
wanted so badly to ask my boss if he could take that line.
He did a great job with it. He delivered.
Oh,
yeah,
they
so I was
loved
very
it.
happy.
They loved it.
Yeah, my kids love coming to. We used to do. We haven't done it in a couple of years since the pandemic, but we did
Bring Your Kid to
Kid to Work Day, and they always talk about that like that was their favorite day ever.
I'd
so.
love to get my kids to that day. They haven't been old enough because then they'll meet the other kids.
Right.
And this show, I mean, like a lot of places that feel like home, everyone loves your kids.
Absolutely.
I just thanked Anthony, I think it is the cameraman, because I have pictures in my phone of him guiding the kids. I wasn't down there. And I was trying to express how it like literally warms my heart watching people love the people I love more than anything in this world.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. All right, we have another listener call.
Okay.
This is from Jamie in the UK. That's right. We're in Europe. Hey there, BTT podcast. Best podcast I've listened to.
Was this for Brian or for me?
That's right here. New watcher and definite Bri guy here. All right. I mean, this is, yeah.
It's for Brian.
My question is to the one and only Sarah and Brian. What's something that you've always wanted to do, but yet haven't had the chance? Keep up the greatness.
So physically, one of my bucket list items is just learn how to scuba dive. I've said this for years and I haven't gotten around to it yet. But 2 would be, I always say to be on Saturday Night Live, but even I use that because everyone knows what that is. I would love to do a version of sketch comedy again. I used to do it before I ever went on air. I did Upright Citizens Brigade. But when I went on air, I remember a lawyer or a standards person at another network telling me, you know, because improv is yes and it can go a lot of crazy places, it's risky in this time where we all have phones that you
Right.
could be recorded and it could be bad. And, you know, because in the name of comedy, you have to sometimes push the envelope and it's usually in a closed room, not broadcast to YouTube or something. So they said you can't do it anymore. And so I stopped doing it and I kind of made this set, my improv sketch. I become so many characters here at the show.
Maybe we can figure something out. We can give you another opportunity.
But
we can do a shoot or something.
That's the goal. But what about you?
Oh, for me, I always there's been a couple opportunities where I've almost gotten to do a cameo on a show that I love, or like been a background character or things like that.
You were in a comic book.
I've been a comic book. I've gotten to do
Really cool
honestly.
things.
It's funny because we get to talk to kids coming up and things like that about working in television. And one of the things I always say is I've literally gotten to do everything I dreamt of doing when I was 14 years old. I mean, I've met
And probably and then some.
And
I
then
don't think
some.
I could
No,
have dreamt big
I've-
enough for the things I've
you know,
done.
I've gotten to be on the field during the Super Bowl.
A lot of Super Bowls.
I've been in the Oval Office. I've met presidents. I've
done
met
that.
every movie star I loved as a kid. It's, you know, I've gotten a real, I've been very, very lucky.
Yeah.
So, you know, it gets hard to think of.
But you'd love to do like a cameo or
Yeah, I'd love to have Whoopi be on Star Trek and I'd be like a guy in the background that gets shot. Like that'd be great. Like if I can.
It's like Joey in Friends. I'll just be the body.
Yeah.
Remember he had a speaking role and then eventually he was literally a dead body.
Yes. For those at home
And there's
wondering.
Brian Tetta, and the family goes, "Daddy, that's you on the stretcher."
By the way, I have to address comments I've read that where people, whenever you're on the podcast, they're like, "Who is she talking to?" Because you're the only one who talks to the control room.
Sorry,
Yes.
those are my friends
Yes.
that actually have jobs on the show,
Yes.
but I feel very safe with. So I oftentimes look to them to see if they're laughing.
Yeah, we need to point a camera right back there, so
Summer,
it's like
Nathan, Emily,
Yeah.
and then like so. I'm sorry, I can't believe I do that.
you
But
do it
I,
every
like,
time. Yeah, it's
every
great.
time.
It's fun.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. We'll show you next time because this is the peanut gallery I adore so much.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining me today, Sarah. Tomorrow, I'm back with the one and only Joy Behar.
Tune in, guys.
Back
Legend.
on Wednesdays where she belongs, and we will see you then.